Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our BELMAS Annual General Meeting on Tuesday, the 14th of July, 2026. It's lovely to see you all and lovely to see those of you who were at conference with us the other week and those of you who weren't at conference with us the other week as well. Lovely for you to be here. Thank you for joining us. So I'm just going to do a quick chair's welcome, and then we'll move on to the minutes from the previous AGM, any matters arising from the minutes, and then we'll come back to my chair's report and then our audited accounts for 2026. 2025. Got to remember that I'm doing an AGM, so we think backwards. So they're the accounts that were audited until last December. And then we'll come to a discussion on the accounts with Fiona and approve our affiliations, and then we'll do pre-submitted questions from membership. So I think Kelly has asked you all to mute and then raise your hands if you want to say anything, so that's absolutely fine. And could somebody else, Kelly, do you want to keep an eye on any hand raising, because I can't see that because I've got multiple screens open on my computer as well, so that would be great. Thank you. Okay, so welcome everybody. That's our agenda for today, and we're going to move through to the minutes from last year's AGM. Kelly, can I just check, are you screen sharing those?
The minutes have all been available on the events page and on the AGM website for over a month, and they've been emailed to everybody as well.
Okay, does anybody have any questions they want to raise on the minutes from last year then? Because otherwise we're just going to move to approving the minutes from the previous AGM. So if anybody has any minutes that any questions that they want to raise about the minutes from last year's meeting, now is your opportunity.
No hands raised.
Just trying to put it onto full screen so I can see you all. No, nobody got any questions? Okay, in which case we'll move to approving the minutes from last year's AGM. So if I motion those to be approved.
Just do a thumbs up, please. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay. Minutes from last year's meeting approved, that's great. And opportunities to ask questions. Any matters arising there, Kelly, that you want to spend any time discussing today?
No, there's been nothing arising from the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay, in which case we will move on to my chair's report, everybody, but I am happy to take questions and things, so feel free to stick your hands up if you've got any additional questions. And I know there were pre-submitted questions as well when we went first, when we put this out to the membership too. So again, I think somebody want to say something? No? Okay. So my chair's report, again, I think this has been made publicly available for everybody, but I'll just zoom kind of through the headlines if that's okay with everybody. So I was pleased to write my third and final chair's report for the BELMAS AGM to inform on the work of the trustees, the office team that I have been doing. I think a lot of you on today's call are aware of quite how busy we are, and I've had some nice emails from people about how busy we have been and some of the things we have done, and I have really personally appreciated those individual emails. Thank you, everybody. It's really nice to get the emails that say this has been really good, or you've attended something and really like the direction of it. So I've been very grateful for those positive emails. Lovely to receive. So we have to think backwards, as I was saying, for the AGM. So we're thinking back to 2025, start 2025, and the promotion of Kelly from the finance role into the executive officer role, and the developing new structure where both Nick and Cynthia had slightly changed roles, and Cynthia had increased hours. And we've kept with that. There is going to be a review later on in the year following our contract that we've signed with Sage for another 5 years. But really, you know, from my point of view as chair, the team work exceptionally hard and really deserve to be congratulated for the amount of work that we've done. We were obviously at conference last weekend, and I was saying that, you know, that phrase that there is no I in team, it's really a case of teamwork, and everybody really kind of pulls their weight and supports. Same applies to the trustees as well. You know, it would be lovely if everybody could commit every minute in the day they've got to BELMAS. Clearly, everybody's very busy juggling trustee duties alongside lots of other duties, and it's, you know, that's a very, it's a very, I'm very grateful for the role and the time that trustees manage to give to BELMAS. So that's great. Thank you. So I suppose the big news is that we, having signed a new contract that starts in January 27, we're aware that we've got declining income. I think we've negotiated quite a good, I can hear some feedback on the call. I don't know if somebody's not on mute, just seems to be a bit of feedback there, sorry. So the new contract starts at the same time as the new chair starts on January the 1st, 27. So congratulations to Steve for taking over from me. He'll be a great chair and move us off in a, you know, similar, different direction. It would be interesting for me to see. But the contract does give us a bit less income coming in, and I think we did well in the current climate to sign such a contract. I think it's quite a successful renegotiation. I like the consistency of the fact that we're staying with Sage moving forward. I think that's all, you know, as good as it could have been really with open access publishing. I've put in my report that I've tried to be as transparent as possible. I've answered lots of direct emails, tried to sort of speak to as many people who wanted to speak to us about our society, the work that we do, and I'm still happy to do that moving forward. I'm hoping, you know, that BELMAS is more transparent, and the role that goes alongside these, the workload that goes alongside these roles is more transparent. But we've done a lot, I think, in that last year, particularly for 2025, to think about our structure. And I would like to thank Helen Gunter for the work that she's done with the Distinguished Service Award. Steve took over from her as chair, and now Megan's taking over that chair role from Steve as he becomes chair of BELMAS. It's really good, that board, to keep our kind of policy memory of our learned society there, and to have a sounding board and to be able to use distinguished fellows across the field as our sounding board. So I've really appreciated that support from that particular group. Thank you. We've got ongoing relationships with CCEAM. They had a symposium at last week's conference, but previously for 2025, I've managed to get to most of their board meetings and try and support their new structure that they've had in place. And we're continuing to do that. We had some conversations at conference again last weekend about that as well. So it's very much an ongoing kind of piece of work. We've got an ongoing relationship with BERA, largely thanks to Karen Healy, one of our trustees, where BERA's Educational Leadership SIG is doing a joint every other year symposium with BELMAS, and that's a really good thing for us to be part of that wider BERA connection. We've got some good links with UCL. We tend to do an input to their conference, to Chingu's conference, the Centre for Education and Leadership, every year. That changes time depending on what kind of organisation they're catching at the time. So it's not a consistent date for it, but every time they've held one, they've invited us, and Cynthia has done a good job there on the BELMAS stand. Thank you. So that's been good. We've had a good relationship with UCEA, so the University Council for Education Administration. And that's one of the things Steve is going to carry on. They're in a bit of flux, UCEA, at the moment. They've lost their executive director, and they're going through an international search to replace her, which has been interesting to watch. So the UCEA very much is a watch this space, but I think we've had some good connections with them over the last few years, and I think that's a good, important space for us to be connecting with as our sort of American sort of big sister type organisation. We have really good connections with ISLDN. I really feel that BELMAS is playing the role in ISLDN, the International School Leadership Development Network, now that it needs to play. ISLDN plays a particularly important part at our annual conference every year. We have around 30 delegates directly connected to ISLDN who come from largely from the States, but from other countries as well. And that's been really, really encouraging to see. Again, I've been attending not just the termly meeting, but the steering group meeting for that. The school visit that we have before the start of BELMAS conference is particularly important to that group. This year we were able to add in a few extras from CCEAM and a couple of people from UCEA to that school visit as well. So that school visit actually had 40 people on it this year, which is quite an ask of any local school that we, choose to go and visit beforehand. But again, we got, lovely feedback both in the 2025 visit to the school we went to in Brighton, a local authority, state maintained school, very much committed to social justice. And last week in Cardiff, a Welsh medium, again, very much local authority run, state maintained school. So it will be interesting, and we'll try and take us to a slightly different type of school for the Newcastle visit for next year as well. So I'll talk to Steve about that moving forward. We're also very grateful for some of the new memorandums of understanding that we have signed this year. I suppose that there are quite a few, but the one that springs to mind here in the report is the one with EUDA in Turkey. So again, a couple of our trustees were very much warmly welcomed over to the Turkish conference in May. And it was really great to see other people representing BELMAS as well. It's a very successful conference. I did an input by video link. I'm not sure how successful that was, but it was it was an input that they asked for. So hopefully there will be a slot in person for BELMAS at those conferences moving forward. And as Tony will tell you, Turkey, along with China, are a larger and increasing number of papers that are contributed to email these days. So it's a really important link there. Another very important memorandum that we've signed is with JC, the Japanese Society for Education Administration. And again, Tony and I were very fortunate to be invited to their 66th, they're older than BELMAS, their 66th annual symposium, international symposium, a few weeks ago in Japan. And again, very good links. We are encouraging them to try and then submit some of their work to journals. I'm personally reviewing a couple of papers for people from that at the moment to try and get them submitted to journals. So again, underrepresented area of the field. So nice for us to be involved in things over there, and important actually in terms of what stuff we can learn from them. There's a lot going on actually in their system, which was really interesting to see. So we've signed a book contract now with Myers Educational Press. So each of the research interest groups have been asked if they want to do an edited collection with Chris Myers. Chris Myers have a relationship with Mare Nostrum, who are one of the biggest European publishing groups. So that's kind of all coming together at the moment. So there's interesting wider opportunities for BELMAS members to get published in things there. It's great to have on today's call the incoming president of ICSE, Paul Campbell. Nice to see you. So again, they had a conference in Qatar, and some of our BELMAS members attended that. It would be nice to see a closer working relationship with ICSE moving forward. I think that would be a really exciting thing for BELMAS. There are a range of other things that I attend through the year that I'll be talking to Steve about. So one of them is the All Souls group. Another one of them is the New Visions Education group. Another one is the FED group, Foundations for Education Development. All of these groups are in the process of lobbying the new Burnham administration for what should be happening on education in Burnham's first 100 days. So again, lots of kind of interesting conversations going on there. Alongside those, I've been sitting on the Ofsted Reform Coalition group, which has been interesting. They actually had a clip on ITN News that some of you might have seen last night. That was interesting to manage to get out into the wider media. And from our Learned Society perspective, the Academy of Social Sciences. So the ACS meetings I've already said to Steve, I've found really useful. So just that sort of vantage point, they're very good meetings chaired by Will Hutton, really useful for us to be in the middle of a group of people who are also running other learned societies and looking at how they're run and what challenges and structures and things that they have. We've been doing a yearly submission to AERA in the States. We decided we weren't doing that this year because it was held in LA, but it is being held in Toronto next year. So there might well be an option to move that symposium to a biannual symposium. Might cost the society less. It's quite good, I think, in terms of having a symposium being seen in the AERA conference lineup. It is a huge conference, 15 to 20,000 people usually across areas of education research. So it is something for us to kind of think about. The last year's one, the 2025 one, is being developed as a current special issue with management in education. And that's not too far off being finished now. So again, it's nice when we can contribute to things, but actually then see some of the impact of that come through our journals as well. I'd like to thank all of our BELMAS members, as well as our team and our trustees, for all the work that's been done on our research awards, bursaries and grants. We've funded lots of events. We're very aware of how little funding there is through the landscape and the precarity, not just of our field, but of the whole of the HE sector, really. So that's a significant part of the work that we do. And I think for members, it's a really important part of the work that we do. And again, the same applies to the blog series, giving people who perhaps are not at the stage where they're ready to contribute to papers, or giving people who've done papers the opportunity to, conversely, the opportunity to write about what papers they've done in a more accessible way. I think the work that the blog team are doing is, really important to us as a society. So thanks very much to the team for all of that. So as I said last year, all of the work is on behalf of our members and authors of papers in both of our journals. I would like everybody to be members of the society. I think if you're publishing in one of the journals, it would be great if you were also a member. But, there's only so much I can do on the little campaign I've been lobbying on there. So, we are increasing our membership. That's a good thing, given that our area is a precarious one. But, it's nice to see that. And I think that probably affirms some of the really good work that the team and the trustees and members are all doing. I think the research interest groups are in a really good shape. We've established a couple of new ones, particularly for AI and leadership for sustainability. And I felt that they were significant gaps, really, for BELMAS. I thought it was important that we needed to be in both of those spaces. We did try and establish another rig where I thought there was a gap, and it just didn't take off at all. So I think it's important that we're very member-led on those. We offer opportunities, and if they don't have legs, then, there's no more we can do there. But to offer the opportunity is, I think, a good thing. So just to say that I'm happy to, Steve and I moving forward are happy to have any other comments from you until the end of this year, when I hand over to Steve formally at the end of December. But I really would like to say thank you and for that workload and the amount that we have achieved. Thanks very much, everybody. So I don't know if there are any, I'm just trying to put you back onto a bigger screen, everyone. I don't know if there are any questions or comments people want to raise about that before we go on to our next stage. So if there aren't any particular comments or anything, we'll move Fiona onto your audited accounts for 2025, please.
Thank you, Deb. Hi, everyone. So this would be probably, I think, my 5th report now, I think, as Vice Chair for Finance to the membership. So thank you, everyone, for coming today. And certainly Deb's touched on, several points already, which are influencing, our thought processes going forward, as well as what we were actually doing last year in 2025. So the overall picture is that from 2025, the accounts from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, We're given a full clean audit report by Horsons, which is very pleasing, and they've assured us that we have going concern as we move forward for the next 12 months. That's always a helpful audit picture to have as an organisation, so the financial statements are a true and fair reflection of the state of our financial affairs. And I think overall the important point to take away today is that BELMAS is in a very healthy financial position, with closing reserves for 2025 sitting just above our minimum reserves policy. And what we've done last year, because of the renegotiation of the SAGE contract, we took a rather cautious approach in terms of what we were doing with our expenditure, with our organisational structure, as Deb has already alluded to, given some changes and our move to CIO status. So we kept quite a cautious budget last year in 2025 and a balanced budget. So our aim was to actually bring in exactly what we were going to spend. But we had quite a pleasing outcome last year in terms of our net movement, in that it was quite positive. So we actually ended around £47,000, just over above where we had hoped to end the year. So we'd made some surplus income. And the main aspects to note from that were actually mainly due to a really successful conference in Brighton. And we actually took in around £20,000 worth of income above what we had anticipated due to increased ticket sales. It was a very popular conference. And the conference model itself that we've spent time developing over the last few years is proving to be quite an efficient conference model, in that we're able to bring in a good amount of income that can support and be invested back into the activities that BELMAS are doing across the board. And that's quite important, particularly as we go on and we grow that model, because as Deb's alluded to, we are in a situation where journal royalty income is going to start declining year on year, and we need to find ways in which we can bring in further income from existing revenue streams, as well as investigate new revenue streams. So that's quite important to consider as we go forward. So conference did very well last year, but it was also quite pleasing to note that we've seen increased membership. So we've had about 4.5% increase in our membership in 2025, which is also bringing in additional income. So we want to continue with that, continue to develop the membership, to grow the membership. And that's certainly something that we're looking at going forward. So there are two key points really, which have improved our income position. And generally, given the organisational structure changes and the expenditure budget we put into place last year, and we started to look for some efficiency savings across the board, we were able to reduce our our expenditure slightly as we went forward, despite it being quite an increasingly expensive context that we're all living within. And we saw some increases last year outside of our control relating to tax and obviously cost of living and various other expenditures that make our overheads more expensive year on year. So what we know in the future is that things are going to continue travelling in that sort of year on year more expensive context. But our income is going to start to decline slightly given our new SAGE contract. And that's, as Deb said, a situation that's across the board. It's sector specific, it's happening across higher education in the publications context. And certainly it's something the board are looking at very carefully going forward in how we can begin to assess the impact of that on BELMAS and the long-term sustainability going forward, but how we can start to look at maximising our existing revenue from aspects like our conference and our membership and the partnerships that we have, but also how we can start to grow new revenue in other ventures, some of which I think the chat started to allude to, and Steve will talk a little bit more about that as we move into the next part after the AGM. So we're keeping quite an open mind as the strategic plan is being formulated from 27 onwards. So I think they're the main things really to note in relation to our financial position, that we've had some very strong stewardship of finances across the board, and my thanks especially to Kelly, Cynthia and Nick for really keeping very close attention to detail on our budgets and managing things very carefully, as well as all of the conference committee and all of the other committees as well, in terms of their work to create some really successful activities across the board that have been very engaging for the membership, but also very carefully navigated us through a lot of change last year. So it was pleasing to report as well that our SAGE contract was renewed, as Deb said, and I think we got, in terms of looking across the market and the investigations that we did across the publications context, we came out with the best deal that we could. So we're very pleased with that outcome, and we're going to continue to monitor those income streams as we go forward. So that's really the main highlights I wanted to share with everybody. And I think the main work now this year, we've been beavering away very, very busily, looking at the strategic objectives, looking at formulating the plan ahead, particularly taking into account the context that we're working within, increasingly year-on-year expensive, what we want to actually achieve as a society, the mission that we have, as well as how we can sustain and grow our income streams going forward over the next 5 to 10 years. So lots of really good work happening this year, and I'll be pleased to report more on that as this year closes and we're going into next. So if anybody does have any particular questions on the management accounts, the financial accounts presented today, do please ask them now, either in the chat, or if you prefer to come to the mic, that's fine as well. But if there's no other questions around the accounts, I will propose that we accept the audited annual accounts as they've been presented to the AGM today. If everybody is happy to do that, it'd be great to have the thumbs up. I can see lots of thumbs up coming. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And the only other part really within this segment is to look at proposing the accountants for the 2026 financial year and audit. So we've been working with Horsons for a few years now, and we've had a very excellent relationship, great critical friendship, and I feel that there's excellent value for money in the contract that we had in the last few years. And we are proposing that we ask Horsons to be our auditor for 2026, and that will take us then from 27 onwards to a market exercise, because every 5 years it's good practice to go out to market, have a look at what's available in terms of audit, and to ensure that we're getting value for money and good critical friendship maintained. But for this financial year, for 2026, we do propose that Horsons are our audited accountants. Are you happy as a membership to accept that proposal? Okay, lots of thumbs up coming through. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Great, thank you. So that really concludes the financial management accounts presentation to the AGM. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Fiona. And I can't see some claps and things going there, but I can't see if anybody who wants to ask any questions, and I can't see anything in the chat specifically for you either. So that's great. So we can move on then to approve our affiliations. Most of the things that we are affiliating today I have already mentioned. So the most expensive affiliation we do is to the Academy of Social Sciences. Absolutely worth every penny, in my view, in terms of that sounding board that we have with them. So that costs us £333 a year. They do that based on the size of your organisation. We do BELMAS trustee membership at £14 per person, just for the trustees on the board. And so again, as part of our support with the Council for Commonwealth Education Administration Management, I would suggest that that's a good thing for us to renew. We are a member of the Living Wage Employer for £60 a year, and I think as a social justice organisation we should be seen to be doing that and operating in that space. That seems a very small amount of money really for that certification, for something that we all agree with. And then our membership for the National Council for Voluntary Organisations is our second most expensive one. That comes in at £188 a year. But again, for that, we get access to all our training, and we get access to various helplines and things whenever we need any kind of wider sort of office support. We're also a member of Disability Confident organisation, but amazingly, that doesn't cost us anything. Fiona, I think that's perhaps something they should be thinking about, but another good thing for us to belong to there. So I motion that we approve all of those affiliations. If you'd like to put any comments or any thumbs up about those, please. Thanks very much, everybody. Lovely. And now, Kelly, we're moving on to pre-submitted questions from the membership.
Yes, there was one pre-submitted question for the deadline on Friday. I just have it here.
You might want to put it in the chat, Kelly, as well, because your internet signal, as predicted today, isn't brilliant. We knew that might be an issue today. There's an issue with Vodafone in Kelly's area, everybody. So she's doing her best in challenging circumstances.
I will copy and type it into.
Yes, lovely. Thank you. Because you're definitely breaking up there. Okay, so we have a question. As an early career independent researcher from Cyprus, working in educational leadership, digital transformation and social justice, small-scale public education systems, I'd like to ask how BELMAS supports international and early career researchers who seek to contribute to the field through conferences, research interest groups, mentoring, publications and collaborative networks. I'd also like to be interested to know whether BELMAS is planning further initiatives around digital leadership, ethical AI, equity and school transformation. So that's an interesting, quite wide-ranging question. So if I deal with the education, leadership, digital transformation space first, I think I already mentioned in my chair's talk that we have set up a new research interest group in AI and education, leadership, management, administration. So the research interest groups offer a lot of support to our early career researchers. So each of the RIGs are asked to make sure that they're putting on events for early career researchers, as well as events for the more mainstream people inside their research interest groups. But we also have an emerging research interest group, which is a specific space for early career researchers, and those of us who've got a bit more experience, nip into that group and help steer that group and contribute to that group as well. And then alongside all of that, we have all our awards, bursaries and grants. So a lot of those are targeted at early career researchers. There are various discounts there that are available for membership, for conference. There are opportunities to apply for bursaries to be able to help support the attendance at conference. And then when you come to conference and alongside conference as well, like through our Early Career Researcher Month, we have specific Meet the Editor events designed as well to answer the questions for early career researchers in terms of supporting those publications that you're interested in, and mentoring and collaborative networks available through the RIGs for that. So interested to know whether BELMAS is planning any further initiatives around digital leadership, ethical AI, equity and school transformation. So that some of that work is happening in the BELMAS supported International School Leadership Development Network. We're quite happy to add anybody else into that network. So it might be that this person that's asked the question would like to join that collaborative space as well. We can facilitate that. But also we have further initiatives planned from our AI and ELMA RIG, from our Emerging Researcher RIG, and from our Early Career Researcher Month, which has those mentoring and coaching opportunities that we've discussed. So quite a wide-ranging question. Hopefully I've kind of covered most of the areas that we do there to respond to it. But again, if anybody wants to add anything else in, please feel free to do that in the chat. There are probably things that we could mention that I haven't remembered there. Okay, so we've got a little bit of time now to move on to any questions or any comments that people would like to make, and then we're having a break before the next part of today's session. So before I move to any closing remarks, would anybody like to add any other questions or make any other comments? So there's another question from Denise in the chat that I think has been answered partly there in the chat. Denise, nice to see you, good to hear from you, around whether or not BELMAS has considered developing an accreditation or endorsement framework for education leadership programs and professional development courses. And this is one of the things that our group that are looking at developments and ways in which we could move forward are discussing at the moment. So yeah, we'd be very happy to have any input from you, Denise, into that. It's one of the things that we have been talking about moving forward. It's not without challenges, but it's one of those things that is definitely kind of up for discussion. Anybody got any other comments or questions? Just trying to see whether or not I can see everybody. Can't see any more questions and can't see anybody that's got any comments. No?
There's no other questions in the chat, Deb.
Say that again.
There's no other questions in the chat and there's no hands raised.
Okay. Okay, does anybody want, I can see Kelly at the end of the AGM notes, the supporting documents are the email annual report and the MIE annual report, but they're not on the agenda. So are we just moving to close the agenda now? Or do Paul or Tony want to say any words about the journals this year? Don't want to spring anything on you. I just wondered if anybody wanted to add anything else before we move to close. Okay, in which case I will move to close our AGM. And oh, we've got another question. Thank you, Denise. Another question from Denise about BELMAS expanding its international presence and membership as a strategic priority over the coming years. I think this is a really good question, Denise, actually. Thank you very much for this. So I think obviously we are the British Education Leadership Management Administration Society. We will always be the British Education Leadership Management Administration Society, but our focus is very much the field internationally. If you look at either of our journals, they're very much an internationally focused and the work that we do is very much internationally focused across virtually all of the rigs. Actually, one of them I can think of has a more domestic kind of focus, but most of them have overwhelmingly international focuses. Some of the things I've mentioned today, so I'll work with the Council for Commonwealth Education Administration Management, I'll work with the International School Leadership Development Network, I'll work with University Councils for Education Administration in the States, are all very much around developing those international associations. The work we've done this year with Japan and Turkey that I mentioned, and also I work with other organisations that I haven't mentioned. So domestically with the University Centre for Equity that Paul Miller's developed. I'll work with the International Professional Development Association. There are various other works that go on through the year that are part of our kind of annual calendar, but the focus is very much on those kind of international collaboration, really. And that's one of the reasons why I was saying earlier on that I thought more connection with ICSE as the International Congress on School Effectiveness would be, and school improvement would be a really, really good direction as well for us just to go. I think we're all aware that we have an expanding field in other parts of the world, Turkey, China, to name but a few, and I think that's where the field really is actually, and we absolutely have to follow that. And I know you have your own work in the UAE and in MENA. We have a surprisingly large number of people now from across MENA. So MENA is an area, we can have geographic research interest groups as well as focus-based research interest groups if we wanted to. I know they do that in other learned societies, so that's part of one of those things that we've been talking about. Helen's just put a very sensible comment in the chat as well. So one of the developments initiated that I didn't mention actually, because it's a 2026 initiative, not a 2025 initiative. We try and look backwards at our AGM, but one of the new developments initiated by our Distinguished Fellows Advisory Board is to give recognition to international colleagues through the award of the Distinguished Fellow role. So some of our thinking behind that is to enable new Distinguished Fellows to support BELMAS at work in their systems and across their systems. I think that's a really important direction for us. Tony, would you like to come in there?
Yes, thank you, Devon. Denise, it's a really great question that you've asked us today at the AGM. Thank you very much. I think it's very important for everyone to understand the way the field is changing. So 20 years ago, this was a global north field, strongly focused in the UK, US, and Australia in particular. That's not the case anymore. So this is a global field, and just in relation to email, We had submissions from 77 countries in the last 12 months in all 6 continents. It's very important for BELMAS, in my view, to be part of that trend, to support it, encourage it, and not get left behind by the shift. So, Denise, it's a great question, and as you can tell, my answer to it is very positive. I'm sure it is for the society as a whole. So, thank you.
Thanks, Tony. That's great. Yes, so good question, Denise. And as you can see, lots of work kind of being done in that space to try and support our international members, but also the work and the development of that. Okay, anybody else got any other questions? I'm just going to give you one last opportunity if anybody would like to add anything into that. Otherwise, we're going to move to close the AGM, and I believe we're having a break until, oh, Fiona, yeah, come on in.
Yeah, I'd just like to take this opportunity, Deb, with it being your final AGM as chair, to thank you for your leadership over the last 3 years and everything that you've been doing behind the scenes. So much of it isn't spoken of, it doesn't come out in all of the reports, all of the hard work that you have done and put your heart and soul into to really help develop the BELMAS mission and vision for the future. And I think you've done tremendous work over the last few years, and before that, as your role on board has been, much longer than 3 years. And I think, we just all have to take that moment to thank you and to look at how you've done a fantastic job in beginning the handover process to Steve, and we're in excellent hands going forward. And I know that's in no part due to the hard work and effort you've put in. So my thanks to you, and thanks on behalf of everyone.
Oh, thanks, Fiona. That's lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. Yes, I should say, I think I did say at the start, so my final AGM as chair, but also my final AGM as a trustee. So when I'm with you next year, I will just be a little square on Zoom watching what everybody else has done. So as part of that, I have joined the email editorial board in the last round of editions with Bernie, with Paul and with Wahid. So I look forward to working with Tony and Megan in that email space instead. And on my current desktop, I have 2 email reviews and an MIE review to do before I go on holiday on Friday. So you can see that the workload won't end. It will just shift into a different type of BELMAS space. But obviously, I would like to say good luck to Steve in his incoming chair role. We're going to see a little bit in our next section of what some of that might involve, which we're looking forward to. It's been an absolute privilege to represent BELMAS in all the different spaces that I have been able to, and I've really enjoyed doing the role. So thank you very much, everybody, for your support. I've really, really very much appreciated it. Kelly, are we staying on this link and just going to mute and then all coming back in at 1 o'clock? Is that the plan?
You can do, or we can end the link and restart it, because the plan was for the next in conversation with start at about 1:10.
1:10. Okay. We always seem, this might be my fault, everybody, we always seem to zoom through an AGM, and I'm not meaning to not give everybody their opportunity to say things, but I think the last 3 years they have gone quite a bit quicker than we thought they should. So yes, okay, so in which case we will end this link and restart it at 1:05, just to give everybody enough time to come in for the 1:10 session, which we're very much looking forward to. Thank you, Helen, for chairing that. Steve, looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. Thank you, everybody, very much for coming to AGM. We really appreciate the time and effort, and we will see you in 20 minutes or so.
Thank you, everybody.